Allison. All right, welcome to the session on Tiny Techies. I am Samantha Dalby, and I'm the Director of K-12 Education with NewBoCo. And NewBoCo is a nonprofit based in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So we are local, homegrown, and we work with students, and we also work with educators all over Iowa, including some of you on the call tonight. So great to see you. And I'm joined by Allison.
Hi, everyone. I'm Allison, and I'm the Assistant Director on our K-12 team. And like Samantha said, it's good to see some familiar faces tonight.
Yeah. So tonight we're talking about Tiny Techies, and this just kind of shows you where that lies and all of the things we offer. So Tiny Techies is our earliest program that works with preschool through second grade educators, and that can be in school, in classrooms. It can also be used after school, out of school, libraries, community centers. It's quite flexible. And I always forget to grab that link before, and that's why I've got Allison, because she's prepared and can grab those. So you can also send this link as well as the recording if you want, for people that has some more information on it. And just a little bit of background on this program. So this is one that we've developed over several years, and it started because my kids were in a Montessori school setting, and the teachers and administrators said, we hear all about, students need to have exposure to technology, but what does that mean in a hands-on setting where, developmentally kids are moving around? And so I said, well, let's figure that out. So I started going in and working with them with 3-year-olds through 6-year-olds, which was in their building initially, and started doing these activities and testing them out and getting feedback. Kids that age definitely give feedback. Getting feedback from teachers. And then we've also worked with other educators at other grade levels, done this at conferences, and talked with educators as well to expand it. And so that's kind of where it fell in this preschool through second grade. We also prioritized not having them on screens, not to say you can't add this within something that is at a screen, using Scratch or Scratch Junior or something like that. But this program is really for hands-on and teaching those concepts. And then also they can be standalone, or we've been working, especially with classroom teachers, to incorporate them into lessons that they're already teaching. So figuring out how they connect with other content areas and reinforcing and supporting those areas as well. See targets, movement, hands-on activities, lots of that. If you don't like loudness, you probably aren't working with this age group anyway, but there's lots of excitement stuff happening in there too. It does implement many of the CSTA standards from level 1A, so it meets those. No prior experiences, pretty much everything we do. No prior experiences expected from students, obviously, or the educators. And then I kind of mentioned that flexible implementation. And then some of these pictures that we've got included throughout are the students doing activities. So just to show examples, this one is actually them doing algorithm art. And so they're learning what algorithms are. They are acting out algorithms through making art. And then what we did in this case, we always like to show it off in the little lunch cafeteria areas to show off the art that they created, and then they can explain it. So students start to relate computer science concepts to things that they are already familiar with as well. So they're building mental models, they're seeing examples in it, and through discussions, and then also through activities that they're actually doing it. And then programming or coding is introduced, but like I said, not at screens. So we do include robots for this one. The ones that we like to include are the Cubeto robots, which program using physical pieces that are color coded, and they have shapes to represent forward, left, right, those things. And they also come with stories and mats that go together. So there's literacy component in there. And then we also give examples on how to build on that. And here we've got pictures. You can see the very excited kids. They were successfully moved Cubeto around the mat. And then the other one, I think this is the one where they're debugging things. And we also, so we have them do an activity where they are experiencing it. And then we oftentimes have them create their own version. So they drew pictures for pre-readers, or they would write out things that would happen in a sequence, but they would put them out of order. and they would have a friend look through that and figure out what was wrong and then debug it and fix it. It's just a couple of examples. So what does the training look like? And I'm going to pass it on to Allison because she's the expert in a lot of this part.
Absolutely. So we designed the Scale Up program and the training to really be accessible for educators from all different backgrounds. So your package would come with a kit that would have different resources to be used in the activities. And our next slide goes more in depth as to what those look like. We also have a teaching guide that we'll share with you and work from during the training. The teaching guide, we call it a living document. So it's got different computer science concepts in it, and then activities and lessons that you can pair with those. So rather than a structured sequence of you need to do this, this, and this, it's really just giving the teachers the tools to implement this in any way that works for them. The training itself will be a one-day workshop, and that will be in the summer months. Our plan is to go to different regions throughout the state, depending on where the teachers are, trying to choose those spots based on where the registrations are to make it convenient for teachers to travel. And then we'll also have 3 follow-up virtual sessions in the fall. And those are designed to just really continue to touch base, check to see how everybody is doing, discuss any implementation concerns, and really help everyone throughout this process. And then the license renewal piece is for different types of educators. So within the Scale Up is included 1 teacher relicensure credit. So classroom teachers would be familiar with that. Or there's 10 DHS clock hours and also 1 continuing education unit. And that's all within the Scale Up cost. And then if educators were interested in the graduate credit, they could also do that for an additional cost. I think that's everything there, but feel free to ask other questions on that piece.
Yep. Thank you, Allison.
Mhm.
And Jennifer, so Jennifer asked a question. She's a teacher librarian at our school, and I would love to recommend this program to one of our grade level teams. Which grade level do you believe these activities are best suited for the preschool through second band? I would say you could go like middle of the road. Like if you're like, so of our participants that have gone through it so far, we have someone in kindergarten that's really excited about it and loves it with their students. And then we've got a second grade teacher that's super excited. So it really fits all of them, but maybe like kindergarten, first grade, because especially if they're introduced to it initially this way, they get that big movement piece in there. The other thing to think about, one of the reasons why we picked the Cubetto robot, I can go to a picture maybe that shows it a little bit more. So the unique thing about this robot, and we like it for a lot of reasons, but this down here, this section, and this may not mean anything to you guys, so just totally like let it go over. You can watch the recording, but it's called a function line. And functions are actually a more like high school students are learning about functions, that kind of thing. But this is like a really fun early introduction to it. And in my testing of this, prior to 5 years old, the kids, I would say like, you know, it's too advanced. They aren't going to be able to pick up on that necessarily. You can explain it and they might like grasp a few things, but they aren't going to do it on their own. But when you get into that first to second grade, that's when you start to see them being able to do those. So if you want to take advantage of that piece, or you could also just have like, you know, them share those resources and have them learn that. That's something that is unique to this piece. Everything else though, like I would say maybe just pick kindergarten, first grade, somewhere in there as a great thing. And I'm kind of waffling because I would do it with all the grades.
I was going to say, we do, well, I am unmuted. We do Codable with our pre-K and TK kiddos. And I just do like 3 at a time, and we do circle on the floor and they rotate stations. And they love Codable. So I think depending on how your kids handle it, I think they could handle the Cubetto as well.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really approachable. The kids, like pretty much every kid that I can't think of a kid that hasn't wanted to do something with it. And there are different ways to relate to it too. And also in that teaching guide, Like Allison said, it's a living document, and we share other, like with permission, we share things that other teachers have come up with. So for example, in our first cohort, one of the teachers, he was actually a coach, and he went into, was it a kindergarten classroom? Allison, do you remember? I think so. And he created a template that you could print out that students could cut out to make a costume for Cubetto. And so it kind of made like, you know, a cube without the bottom piece. And then students decorated their costume. They came up with a theme, and then they had a parade with the costumes on it. So we've shared that template with people. There is not a Facebook page for Tiny Techies, just our K-12 NuboCo one. Yep, that's a good question. Okay, so what's included in the Scale Up Award? So it covers all of the facilitation, so that summer full day workshop and the 3 follow-up virtual ones to check in that are hour and a half-ish, and also provide additional training on some of the materials. Stipends for participating workshops. So for the summer workshop, it's $110 for that whole day, and then $20 each for the 3 follow-ups, so $170 total, that we send direct deposit to you, so it shows up magically in your bank account. Hello Ruby books, those are very popular. One of the districts that we worked with in this, they already had a few in the library, but they appreciated being able to have a set in each classroom, or even multiple, so that students can use them at the same time. The robot and additional mats and storybooks that go along with that. And then I'm going to pull up another. We also work with Learning Beautiful, which makes these really nice, lovely, high quality things. And so included in our set is this binary tree, which offers a lot of different ways to teach concept of binary, and also categorization, organizing. The small and medium pixel boards, so they're learning about representing data in different ways, abstraction, representation, and they're also reinforcing that binary and what it can look like graphically. And then there are books that go along with those. You can kind of see like the binary and the pixel board ones. And then the 3-part computational cards. So these can be used in a lot of different ways too. And then, oh, and there's a handbook too that have all kinds of activity examples for those materials as well. And during the workshop, we go through a couple of those, but then one of our follow-up sessions is actually with Learning Beautiful, so they can go in more depth, and you'll have your materials at that time, hopefully supply chain issues pending, and so that you can see those and work with them as well. We also include supplies to get started with squishy circuits. So that's Play-Doh, batteries, LED, 300 LEDs for all of your little fingers to play with and lose. So we've given you plenty of those to happen. And then a snap circuits kit for them, because we also include debugging and working together and decomposition through electricity and electronics, so that they're also getting some of those technology pieces in. So all of that is included. We include some of the consumables, but there are things like batteries that will need to be replaced, Play-Doh, you'll probably, dries out, and then things that you might want to print off that we don't include. Any questions about any of that stuff yet? We just kind of threw a lot of things out there. All right. So the other thing, just a little bit about the support for teachers. So we don't go away after the workshops. We still exist, and we're happy to help people out. And the way that the workshop, the full day workshop is structured is we kind of chunk the concepts together, give an overview of those. And I usually talk about how I've modified things for different groups, how other teachers have modified it. And then we give like 30 to 40 minutes for each chunk of 3 for people to try them out, to actually get the resources out, to try them, see how they might fit into other content areas, how it would fit into what they're already doing, just have time to explore, and then also kind of brainstorm. After lunch, we have a big amount of time to explore with the robots. We have some groups that don't ever want to come back from that part, but then we also talk about implementation and help brainstorm on what that might look like. And then those check-ins, like Allison said, are really great for just getting you back on track if, the start of the school year goes off the rails, like it's been known to do, and you need a little connection with other people that have gone through the workshop and hear what other people are doing. Okay, questions. Thank you for putting them in the chat. Is this something that could easily be shared between multiple sections of a single grade, or would it really be best for one award per classroom? Great question. Yep. So we have a district that we worked with last summer that I think we had 9 people participate in that group, and they have done both. Like sometimes they will share, like especially with the pixel boards, they'll say, hey, I'm going to do an activity with the whole class. Can I get everyone's pixel board? And they'll borrow those. Or maybe they've decided what the sequence is going to be. Some of that's kind of in process this year too, where they're saying, okay, in kindergarten, we're going to do this. And, that's going to be the introduction and the only time they're going to do it, because we're going to do other things in other grades. So we're going to share that. But the nice thing with this Scale Up Award is that you can request additional small group components. So if you have a larger class, you can say, let me see if I've got it up here. So you can, for 4 to 8 kids is what the small group is for. And that's included the Cubetto stuff and the Learning Beautiful. So those are the ones that we got feedback on from those groups, like, hey, we wish that we had more of these materials in a single classroom. And so you can say, I've got 30 kids, so I would like to have additional kits to serve multiple small groups of students. It's still not going to be one-to-one because we want a lot of times those kids to work together. But also in implementation, we've seen station rotations be used, or them, having half the class do one activity and then switch, or having the whole group do the same activity but be in the groups of 3 to 4 students. So we try to provide some flexibility based on feedback from participants on those materials. Great question. What else do you have for us?
So when teachers have used this in the past, is it tied in with their existing science curriculum? Is it a standalone? Is it just a STEM day? What does that look like? Because next year my role is changing from a tech integrationist, TLC, 3 buildings, 2 districts, to 1 building, half-time TLC, half-time computer science. And I'm like, I'm crapping my pants right now because this stuff's all good, but it's just, where do I start?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
so the short answer is that all of the above. It's been used all of the above. So, and that's one of those things that we can help you think through, though, specifically, and talk through. And that's kind of like the feedback that we got from the first cohort in particular was, we've been doing computer science, but it was nice to just like go through slowly and actually do things and take time to think about where to do it and try it out, because you do learn so much and it's like a fire hose. And then it's like, well, where do I start? And so these are small enough chunks and they're designed to be, we call them activities, but you could teach them as a lesson if you wanted, and that was the focus. But a lot of times they're integrating it into something. So trying to think, like, I got to go observe the kindergarten, 1st and 2nd graders using this at that district that we worked with. And they each did it a little bit different way. Like the 1st grade class, they were doing pixel boards that day. And so the teacher she had made a key of a printout, and I think it was like around Thanksgiving. So it was like a turkey, but it was 1s and 0s, and the kids had to shade it in. And so, the whole time they're like, oh, I think it's this, or I think it's that. So they were making guesses and hypothesis. But then it was kind of like tied in with their math and representing things and like charts and graphs and stuff. And so they would take those binary pieces, and some of the students were just replicating the image on the cards. Some of them were looking at the binary and saying, okay, this is a 1 and a 0, so that represents a black or a white. And then some of them were actually creating their own and then having their peers replicate that. And some of them were like lining them up to make actual like bar charts and saying like, okay, I've got 5 M&Ms or whatever, like doing all those different things that all in the same time. So it was very chaotic, but they're all pulling different things out of it.
Okay. All right, that helps.
I'd say for that too, Shauna, like we try to find those natural connections to reduce any barriers. So like teachers are very comfortable with teaching sequencing, which is a very common like computational thinking component. So trying to help them see like, oh, we do this during calendar, or I teach this during literacy centers all the time, looking for where those little connections are, and trying to highlight those pieces.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
Yeah, one of the other things we've seen just in working, especially with elementary school teachers on the integration piece, is having students be a part of that, because they are great at scavenger hunts and making it a challenge. So as you introduce a concept and saying, here's an example in like with the sequencing. In literacy, we have a story and it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Or in math, numbers go in a certain order. Those are types of sequences. And then some teachers will create like an anchor chart to identify that, and then say, see what kinds of sequences you find throughout the year, and just raise your hand or call them out or something. And then it was interesting because one district that we did this with, they came back and said, oh my gosh, like, yeah, these kids are so excited and they're so engaged because they're looking for, like, it's like a Where's Waldo, and they're like, oh,
Yes.
hey, sequence, I found sequencing or something, or oh, that's decomposition. And then teacher's like, oh yeah, I didn't even think of that. But the kids are
Right.
identifying, and then they're like, okay, let me write that down in my lesson plan for this, because next year I can actually
Okay.
be in front of it. But yeah,
That makes sense.
just things like that we've learned over the time. We try to include that and help you guys out too. What other questions do we have? You guys have great questions tonight.
So most districts are using these as like centers or small groups rather than whole group.
I would say a mix. I would say like the robot and the Learning Beautiful stuff. Yeah, like small group. I prefer those. Like I will put the 3 to 4 kids together and have, like, if I've got 3 cubatos or something like that. But with like there's one on, I think it's the like looping one where you're familiar with the dance stuff, right? But we have students go and then create their own dance. And we, like for my pre-readers, I'll give them cards that have images of moves. And with readers, they'll have descriptions on there, and they have to create that. That's the whole class doing it. And they might do it in pairs, like pair them up, but then like we all do everyone's dance and everyone twirls all the time. And so you get really, really dizzy. But we do that as like, I do that as a whole group, as an example.
Because I use the Hello Ruby series as a whole group. And, yeah, we did the dance loops, and we're working on creating our own remote to make that. But I'm just trying to figure out how to use the other stuff. So,
yep. Yeah. And we try to give a couple of different suggestions in there. And then, I mean, as we grow more and more teachers using this, I imagine it'll be that community aspect of like, oh, hey, this is how I did it. Obviously they're going to think of things that we didn't, because they are in different classrooms and situations and all of that too. So the bonus of having a community.
mhm.
Excellent. Well, if you have questions that come up afterwards, like always happens to me, you can reach us at k12@nubo.co, and we'll be happy to answer those questions. And I believe applications for the Scale Up are due by the end of February 28th, I think. And if you need any help as you're filling those out, if you choose to do it, then we are glad to answer questions. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and hopefully have a great warm evening.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.